Begin the current Daf, Masech the Shabbos Daf Kuchav Dal. We begin 6 lines down at the top of the Yomid. We're in the middle discussing the way, the evolution, how it happened of the Gzeira of Muktzah, and then regarding how they made everything usher, and then they started making more and more things permitted. So the Gemara had a statement regarding, there was 4 Mishnayos that we said that was before they started permitting the Muktzah. That's where the Gemara continues on that thing to actually say that's not necessarily so. Ashir's co-sponsor Bekazich Necheskel Tor anytime Daf Chaim. Some ideas we're going to speak about today's Daf is the next Mishnah discusses a machlekes Tanakh and Reb Nechemya regarding Kalisha Malach Leheter. When you have a permitted item, its general function is for things that are permitted utility on Shabbos, not a generally prohibited. Regarding what exactly are you allowed to use it for, and then there's a machlekes Rabba and Rava how to qualify that machlekes itself, which then that relates also in the understanding of the limitations of Kalisha Malach Leheter. When you have a vessel that's used for prohibited items, what the function of that is also. Then we have a next Mishnah that discusses even broken utensils may be moved on Shabbos. However, there's a machlekes regarding what is the limits, where are you allowed to move the broken utensils on Shabbos, regarding in the Chutz or in the Carmelis or in the Rosh Hashanah. That we have 3 different opinions regarding the permissibility of where you're allowed to move the broken utensil. What do we consider it still as a usable item for Shabbos? Some important terms of concepts we're going to learn about in today's daf is called Eisav Es Benai. Eisav Es Benai is the prohibition of slaughtering a mother and an animal, a baby child, on the same day. Klisha Malach Leheter, these are terms that we're discussing on many of these dafim. A vessel that's generally used for prohibited function, let's say a tablecloth, something that's not a klisha, it's permitted function on Shabbos. That's a Klisha Malach Leheter. Klisha Malach Leisser is something that's generally used, its general function is for prohibited item, let's say a hammer, a screwdriver. Its general function is for prohibited, which is you would be baino or makah patish with it. That's has more limitations of the laws of muktzah. Grav shalrei is a bowl of excrement, which is like a urinal, things that are used generally to hold waste matter that has certain dispensations about moving that on Shabbos. So we begin the current daf, 6 lines daf at the top of the Yomid. We're in the middle of the discussion that we mentioned in the previous daf. We said that there were 4 mishnayos, for example, the ones of the tubes of the shulchan, or the sticks that they would use to skin the Karban Pesach on Erev Shabbos. If let's say if Erev Pesach was on Shabbos, so we said that those mishnayos must have been taught before the restrictions on the moving of kelim were relaxed, because why can't you move these tubes on Shabbos? You have to come Erev Shabbos, take it away. The new ones you're going to put in, although they would switch it on Shabbos, but the tubes you would only put in the back on Matzah Shabbos. What's wrong with moving the tubes on Shabbos? They're not a Klisha Malach Leheter. So this is just like a partition. It's like a tablecloth almost, right? And what's the problem with these sticks? As someone else pointed out in the shiur yesterday, or the stick is not, it's Klisha Malach Leheter. What's wrong with a stick? So obviously, said the Gemara, these mishnayos were all the way in the beginning when we said everything's usher, only 3 things, or a certain type of a knife and a certain type of a wedge. That was the only 3 things we permitted, but everything else was forbidden. That's why those mishnayos were saying that, look, they're going to be usher to move because of that. And that's what the Gemara continues interestingly and says, Amar Rabbi, he says like this, he says, Mimai, we did get this idea that these 4 mishnayos were taught before the heter of kelim were taught. Dilma Emelach, maybe I could tell you, La'achat Taras Kelim Nishna. Maybe it was taught after all the vessels were permitted, and still going to be muktzah. Why is that? So he explains. He says, Kanim Mai Taima. He says, what's the reason by the reeds that you put them by the maracha? You see over here by the shulchan. What was the point of these tubes on the shulchan? Mishramei Pushe, because we don't want it to get moldy. Although there was a miracle that the bread would be put on one Shabbos, it would stay till the next Shabbos, but we don't rely on miracles, and we wanted to make sure that the bread don't get moldy, because if you have one bread laying down on the other, it's not going to let the ear get in, it's going to get moldy. And that says the Gemara, Bahai Purtam, in that a little amount of time, that the old one is there without the tubes from Friday night to Shabbos day, and the new ones are there when you put on Shabbos day till Matzah Shabbos, in that a little amount of time, Loi Me Apish, it's not going to get moldy, and therefore, that's why you don't even need the tubes. In other words, if there was a need for it, of course we would be allowed to move it on Shabbos, because we're talking about after all the permissibilities of muktzah. But if you have no need at all, even actually in halach, it's not even so simple. If you have a Klisha Malach Leheter, if you have no need to move something, it's not even so simple that you could even move it. And since there's no need to move it, that's why you can't move it. So it's not because it was taught before all the heterim, it's after all the heterim. It's in the current state of muktzah. So why can't you move it? Because you have no need for it. What's the need for it? And since there's no need for it, that's why you can't move it. So too, it goes to the Gemara to the second case that we had mentioned the previous time. maklis, which is also this picture of the sticks of beginning of the Korban Pesach. We said that no, you're not allowed to use the sticks. You have to put your hand on the friend's hand, on his shoulder, and then you guys put through your hands, you skin it on hanging over your hands. Why is that? Why can't you use the stick? Says the Gemara, because Efshek Rebbe Lazar. Because you can do the Rebbe Lazar said, which is do it by the hand on your friend's shoulder and your friend's hand on your shoulder. And therefore, since it's possible, you don't need it. Since you don't need the stick, it's not considered a necessity. And since it's not a necessity, therefore it's going to be problematic. But it's even after all the heterim of muktzah. So to glustera, the case of the knob was the third case, which we said that you're not allowed to really move the knob. On a bolt, you have the knob there at the end. You're not allowed to move it. What you could do is that you could drag it off from one door to the other door. Says the Gemara, why can't you move it? What's wrong with the glustera? It's a klish malach de leheter. It's because Rabbi Yannik, because the Amar Bani says, we're talking about a specific case over here. We're talking about in a courtyard that has no Erev. You have many houses open up to that courtyard, and they didn't join together with an Erev. The halacha is that utensils that were started Shabbos in the house, you're not allowed to take out to a courtyard that doesn't have an Erev. But if it started Shabbos in the courtyard, even though there's no Erev, we'll learn about this in the next Masechta, you're allowed to move it around in the Chatzar. Because the Chatzar is its own domain. The house is in each person's private domain in that common area. So therefore, he explains that this was the machlekes that we mentioned on the top of the Zamid from the previous Daf. Rabbi Shua held, Toicha Pesach, in the doorway, which is where you're taking the bolt from, and now you want to take it to another doorway, Kilifnim Dami. That's like considered inside. In the doorway is like inside the house. So it's considered that it started Shabbos in the person's house. So now you're carrying a utensil that started Shabbos in a house in a courtyard. So that's why it was said that you could only schlepp it, you could only drag it, which is considered tiltum anatzada, indirect moving, but you cannot move it, not because really so much from the laws of muktzah, but simply because you can't carry from the house to the courtyard. That's why you can't. Whereas Reb Tarfon, who held that you could totally move it in the regular way, Sabi he held Teicha Pesach, when it's in the doorway, is kilachutz dami. It's like it's on the outside. It's considered like in the chatzar. So in one of the chatzar, you're taking a utensil that started off Shabbos in the courtyard, but chatzar in the courtyard, kamataltal, therefore you could carry it. So therefore it has nothing to do with the limitations of the laws of muktzah. It's not muktzah. Question is, can you carry it into the courtyard? That was the machlekes regarding cholesterol. And the last case, meducha, of the mortar, which we said that you can't move it unless there's garlic inside. Why can't you move it? Even if it's a klishim lachtala isser, we said that you can move it l'tzarech gufay and maybe even l'kaimai. Says the Gemara, because Reb Nechemia, that halacha was going like Reb Nechemia, who he says in Masechtas Eruvin that even a talis, even a spoon, even all these types of utensils, you're not allowed to move unless it's for its designated utility. So yeah, of course you can't move it unless there's garlic inside, because garlic is the thing that it's used for. But it's something else, you can't move it, and therefore, it's not necessarily as we had established in the previous stuff that we had to say that these four mishnayos were taught before the heter of Kalim. No, it could have been after the heter of Kalim, and still were able to show you the cases that they're still going to be forbidden to be moved, albeit that we already said that there are certain leniencies in regards to the laws of muktzah. We continue to Allah in the next Mishnah, continue on the laws of muktzah. Kala Kalim, says the Mishnah, all vessels which could be moved, there's a machlekes regarding what are you allowed to move them for. So again, this is what's called klishim lachtel heter. So let's just take this tablecloth, for example. This tablecloth, what are you allowed to move it for? So it's a machlekes in the Mishnah. Nitala, and again, you sometimes have to get out of your headspace because we're so used to what we know. Sometimes this is a machlekes before, and then we just go halacha l'maisa like one thing. So in this Mishnah, we're having a machlekes. What can you use a klishim lachtel heter for? Like a tablecloth on Shabbos. So Tanakama says, Nitalun l'tzarech, you can move it for a need, and v'shalei l'tzarech, and not for a need. And this is a little bit vague, as you can see. Memachlekes Amarom, the Gemara, what does l'tzarech v'shalei l'tzarech mean? And Nechemia says, no, ein nitalun l'tzarech. No, you cannot move it, even though it's like a klishon lachtel. It's not designated for a paper utility. It doesn't make a difference. You can only move it for a need. Says the Gemara, my l'tzarech or my shalei l'tzarech. What does this mean? That you can move it for a need and not for a need that the Tanakama says. So we have two opinions. Amar Rabbi, he says like this. He says, L'tzayrech, for a need that the Tanakama said is permitted to be moved, that is a davash malach l'heter. First of all, it doesn't say in the Mishnah what type of utensil are we talking about. So Rabbi qualifies. We're talking about something that's generally used for a permitted Shabbos function. And you're moving it l'tzayrech gufay. When it says l'tzayrech, as you can see in this chart over here, it might be a little confusing, but as you can see, l'tzayrech is l'tzayrech gufay, which means to say, let's say using a tablecloth to cover the table. that's a kli shemalach l'heter, and you're making it l'tzarech gufa for using it on Shabbos for it. You want to use the tablecloth to cover the table. So that's what it means you could use l'tzarech. And what does it mean the Tana Kama said that you could also move it shaloi l'tzarech? It means a davar shemalach l'heter, something that its general function is for permitted. Let's take the tablecloth again, but you're moving it not for the. You don't want to use the tablecloth. You're not using it for it itself. Rather, you're using it l'tzarech mekayim. It's just in the way. I want to take it away from here. I need the table. I want this. I love this lifetime feel. I don't want the tablecloth over here, so I'm moving it away. That's considered shaloi l'tzarech because you're not using it by itself. That's also permitted to be moved. The kli shemalach on Shabbos. Now, the inference obviously is that you're going to go a little bit lower, but davar shemalach le'isser. But let's say it's a kli that's generally used for a prohibited function. Let's take the hammer that we discussed in previous daf, and generally the function of a hammer is to do something forbidden on Shabbos, which is baino, which is makapatesh, which is all these different things. So then it doesn't have the same dispensations. Then only l'tzarech gufa in. Then only if you're using the hammer for its purpose itself, then it's permitted. Where let's say you want to use the hammer to crack open nuts, that's where it's permitted. But if you're not moving it for the hammer itself, but rather l'tzarech mekayim, but only for the place, then you cannot. And Rashi brings that this Rabbah is going to, according to his opinion that we mentioned in previous that he says that you could use the hammer of the blacksmith is also permitted l'tzarech gufa. So although the hammer of the blacksmith is a kli shemalach le'isser, unlike let's say a nutcracker is a kli shemalach le'heter, still you're allowed to move it l'tzarech gufa, but not l'tzarech mekayim. Now, on that that's what Nechemia comes to say. He disagrees with Tana Kama. Now, he says even this tablecloth, he says l'tzarech gufa in. When he says you could only do it l'tzarech but not shaloi l'tzarech, which again the way Rabbah is interpreting that means to say you could only move the tablecloth for itself. L'tzarech mekayim lo, you wouldn't be able to move this tablecloth even on Shabbos, even though it's a kli shemalach le'heter, if you just wanted its place. That's how Rabbah explains the machlekes of our Mishnah. However, on that only Rabbah says to Rabbah, and it's very similar to Rabbah's comment on the previous daf, that we had a similar type of a statement that he says that he equates mekayim and gufa like the same thing. They're both the same tzarech. So he says l'tzarech mekayim, you're calling when you need it for the place shaloi l'tzarech karatli. You're calling it when you don't that you don't need it. As you see in the words of Rabbah, he was translating l'tzarech meant l'tzarech gufa, shaloi l'tzarech meant l'tzarech mekayim. And that Rabbah says, how can you call that l'tzarech mekayim as shaloi l'tzarech? It's the same need. Who cares if you need it for itself or you need it for its place? Still called l'tzarech. How could you call that as the case of shaloi l'tzarech? So Elam Rabbah gives a second interpretation. He says a more lenient interpretation in the laws of Muktzah, and we actually rule like this interpretation. What is l'tzarech? That's davar shemalach le'heter. We're talking about something that's generally used for a permitted function, like we said, like the tablecloth. And l'tzarech that the Tana Kama says is permitted is bein l'tzarech gufa, whether you need it for itself, I need to use the tablecloth to cover the table, or bein l'tzarech mekayim, whether I need the place, I want it out over here, I want to move it away. That's I need the place where it's on. Both of those are included l'tzarech that's permitted. Now, when the Tana Kama said that even shaloi l'tzarech, I can move the tablecloth not for a need, it means va'afil mechamal itself. So let's say I have this tablecloth outside in the yard. We had a nice kiddush picnic, and now it's about to rain. Oi, quick, let's move the tablecloth. What do you need? Why are you moving the tablecloth? Not because you need it, not because you need the place. You don't want it to get ruined. You want to take it from the sun to the shade. You wanted to save it from something getting ruined. Says Rabbah's interpretation is how we rule halacha l'maisa. You're allowed to move it just to protect the kli shemalach le'heter. Now, but that was we were talking about in the Mishnah regarding kli shemalach le'heter. Now the halacha also follows this next statement, but davar shemalach le'isser is not going to have so much leniencies. Let's say there's a hammer. What are you allowed to move the hammer for? That generally is for a prohibited function. L'tzarech gufa or l'tzarech mekayim in, because Rabbah says they're both called l'tzarech. Mekayim and gufa he calls the same thing. He says there's no difference. So yeah, the hammer you're allowed to move if you want to use it to crack open a nut. But you're allowed to move it also if it's on the Shabbos table. Who left the hammer here? Okay, it's over here, but you're allowed to move the hammer because it's taking up the place that you need. But mecham l'tzel loy. But if it's in the sun and it's going to get ruined, to take it to the shade, no, that you're not allowed to move it for. And that is what the Tana Kama holds. And that's actually the halacha l'maisa. Now, Nechemia came to say, he says no. He's more stringent. He says, when he says only l'tzarech yeah, but shaloi l'tzarech not, again, according to Rabbah, what does that mean? Even something that general function is for permitted thing, let's say like the tablecloth, he holds l'tzarech gufa l'tzarech mekayim in. Yes, you can move it only for if you want to cover the table, or if you need the place. But but from the sun to the shade, even though something like a tablecloth, it's left out in the kiddush. No, you cannot move it. You cannot go ahead, and that's called shaloi l'tzarech. Now Rashi just explains, according to Rava, that he explains according to Rabbi Nechemia, that you're allowed to move it l'tzarech gufa and l'tzarech mekayim. Obviously, when we're saying you want to use it for it itself, it must mean a function that's designated for that kli shemlachta leheter. Because we learned in the Braisa on Daf Vav Med Aleph later on, and the Chemie says that, like as we mentioned this a bunch of times, that even let's say a spoon or even a jacket, you could only move it for its designated purpose. So therefore, when he says you can move the table called the tzarech gufa mekayim, it would have to be for its designated function. Then you're allowed to go ahead and move it. Now, even Rabbah holds tzarech mekayim is like tzarech gufa, and it's considered part of its designated function. Now, Rabbah holds that Reb Nechemia only permits l'tzarech gufa only for its designated function, but not l'tzarech mekayim. Now, both according to Rabbah and according to Rabbah, it's specifically a davar shemalach leheter, but a davar shemalach leisser. Obviously, Reb Nechemia would not permit you even to use it l'tzarech gufa. That's the crack open the nod, because you cannot call that tzarech gufa its designated function, because the designated function is a malach leisser. So obviously, you wouldn't be moving it. Obviously, Reb Nechemia wouldn't let you move a hammer under any circumstance, because you can only move a kli for its designated for, and it's designated for clapping in the nails into the building, which you can't do on Shabbos. So obviously that would be forbidden according to all interpretations in Reb Nechemia. So this was the machlekes Rabbah and Rava, how to qualify the machlekes in our Mishnah. Now, the Gemara says Yosef Rav Safra, Rav Acha Bar Huna, Rav Huna Bar Chanina, these three Talmidei Chachamim. The Yasef Karma, they were sitting there saying the following interesting question. What comes out according to this machlekes? Le Rabbah, who he was the first interpretation. Aliba the Reb Nechemia, according to Rabbah's interpretation of Reb Nechemia, that he says that a kli shemalach leheter. Let's say this tablecloth, you're only allowed to move it l'tzarech gufay, because that's how he interprets. Going back to the slide, Rabbah showed that l'tzarech meant l'tzarech gufay, shlo l'tzarech meant l'tzarech mekayim. Reb Nechemia lets you only move it l'tzarech, which meant only l'tzarech gufay, not l'tzarech mekayim. So let's say something like a tablecloth, even things that are permitted to be moved are only for things that are l'tzarech gufay, but not l'tzarech mekayim. So it comes an interesting question. According to Reb Nechemia, sahani ka'aros, these plates that we have on the table after we finish eating, how do you move the plates to move it away? What would be the permissibility of moving the plates? You're not moving it to use the plate. You're moving because you need the place, because you want to go to the next course. But you can't move a kli shemalach leheter l'tzarech mekayim. How do you take the plates off the table according to Rabbah in Reb Nechemia? So Rav Safra said to them, "Midi hava graf shel reif." It's like the muktzah dispensation of a bowl of excrement. Just like a graf shel reif, a dirty, smelly diaper, whatever it is, you're allowed to move it on Shabbos. What I mean, for sure it's muktzah, is because it's actually disgusting in the Rabbanah, therefore we'll leave you and let you take it away. These plates are disgusting because there's all the shirayim over there. That's why you let to move it off the table, because of graf shel reif. Because you're right, if not, it would be considered muktzah, you wouldn't be able to move it. Similar discussion, normally Abaye l'Rabbah. Abaye said to the same interpretation that of Rabbah.
But what if it's an empty bottle of water? I mean, there's no graf shel reif.
Right, then you wouldn't be able to move it.
So, I mean, the teretz is good enough if you have leftovers and it's smelling. But there is a lot of kailim that are empty kailim.
Right.
And they're not a graf shel reif.
Then you wouldn't be able to move it.
So the teretz is not good enough.
If it was clean. He's saying if it was clean, so leave it on the table.
So how many
Right, so he's referring to those that are dirty, moving on to the next course.
dirty dishes.
Right, it's dirty dishes. He's saying if it's clean, you wouldn't move it.
It's clean. No,
Yeah,
it's
so
clean.
how-
There's nothing left.
So there's not it's the kasha is still a kasha then.
Right, in other words, there's a little bit more to add to give color to the case, that it's not so much just that you used it, it's also going to be dirty, yes. So Abaye asked the same question to his Rebbe Rabbah. He says, Lamar, according to the master, according to Reb Nechemia, it's the same thing. It's just saying that Abaye asked the same question. According to Reb Nechemia, that you can only move something that's sort of gufa and not l'tzarech mekayim, even if the kli shemalach leheter. So how do he covers these plates? How does Rebbe have the plates being moved to the next course? So Malay, so he said to him, Rav Safra Chavin, our colleague Rav Safran, who we just quoted before, Mitargamahi translates as Mida Hava Graf shel reif, just like you would have the leniency regarding a bowl of excrement, meaning it's dirty, so therefore you're allowed to take it off. Now, that was a question according to Rabbah, who he was the first interpretation. Now the Gemara asks, Eisvei Abaye l'Rava. Abaye asked on Rava that he said that you're allowed to move a kli shemalachtai le'isser, even l'tzarech mekayim. As we said that he explained kolakil mitalan, which was a kli shemalachtai leheter l'tzarech v'shalei l'tzarech meant l'tzarech gufi mekayim and shalei l'tzarech was mechamel etzel, which meant that but a kli shemalachtai le'isser does not have the leniency of mechamel etzel, but will be able to move l'tzarech gufi and mekayim. It's on that point that he holds that you can move it even l'tzarech mekayim that the Gemara asks for the following brisa. The brisa says, and we mentioned this on the previous daf, meducha, a mortar, which is where they would grind things in, you would smash things. If inside the mortar there's garlic, then you can move it because of the garlic. If not, you're not let to move it. So what Abai is asking is, I understand according to Rabbah that since you don't need it for the mortar itself, obviously because you can't grind things on Shabbos, you need it for it itself, you need it for the place. So I understand why it's going to be us, because according to Rabbah, he holds a klish malach l'isser is only mutal l'tzarech gufa, but it's not permitted l'tzarech makamer. So I understand why you wouldn't be able to move this mortar. But according to you, Rava, that you're allowed to move a klish malach l'isser even l'tzarech makamer, so then why can't you move it? You should be able to move it. Says the Gemara, what we're talking about is machama l'tzel. We're talking about when you're trying to move it from the sun to the shade. Even Rava agrees that's what was called shalei. That's not even shalei l'tzarech. That is shalei l'tzarech, but that was only permitted klish malach l'heter. And here we're talking about klish malach l'isser, which everyone, even Tanakam, would agree should have been to be moved. A similar type of a question, again, another brayso we quoted in the previous stuff. Isvei, Gemara asks from the brayso that says b'shavin, and both b'shavin and b'sil agree, this regarding the pestle, which is the thing that you actually smash things in the mortar. Shem kitzav lav baseb on Yom Tov, you already went and chopped meat on it, you already used it, so you don't have a simchas Yom Tov need, shasal tal dinala move it. Again, same question, it's a klish malach l'isser, that you should be able to be moved, l'tzarech mekayma, why can't you move it? That says the Gemara. Here also it's talking about machama l'tzel. You want to move it from the sun to the shade. That everyone agrees that you can't move it. That's not dibagal and Rava. But now the Gemara asks on everybody from a following Mishnah Masechtas Be'ah. But it's not. Says the Gemara. This is what we learned in the Mishnah that says ein simcha secretary. You're not allowed to support the pot. Let's say the pot's a little bit shaky. So you want to support it. You're not allowed to support it bebikas with a log of wood. And b'chem medela. So too with a door, which the Gemara Masechtas Be'ah says when it means so too the door. You're not allowed to support the door with this log of wood. And we're talking about on Yom Tov. On that as the Gemara, but a log of wood, dibi Yom Tov on Yom Tov. Is it davar shamlach lehetu? It's something that has a permitted function, because what do you use a log for? Use it for fire. And on Yom Tov, you're allowed to go ahead and make a fire, meaning not from scratch, but you're allowed to go ahead and do havara. And still the Bryce is telling us that you're not allowed to move it l'tzairech gufay for a different malach. If you want to use it for something else like supporting a door or supporting a pot, for sure you're not allowed to move it l'tzarech mekayma. So this is difficult on everybody. As the Gemara says, Almas, so you see, davar shamlach leheter, interestingly, a log of wood on Yom Tov is considered davar shamlach leheter because it has a permitted function. You're allowed to go ahead and fuel a fire. And still we see bein l'tzarech gufay, bein l'tzarech mekayma, that not only can you not move it for its place, you can't even move it for a permitted function, which is to support a pot. Us, it's going to be forbidden. How do you understand it? Everyone said that would be permitted. Says the Gemara, no, Hasam over there, my timer, why is it forbidden? Is because Kivin the B'Shabbos, since on Shabbos it's forbidden to move this log of wood on Shabbos, because it's a davar shamlach l'isser. On Shabbos, this log is considered a vessel that has a prohibited function, generally, because on Shabbos you now make fires. So therefore on Yom Tov it's also going to be forbidden, because Gezerah Yom Tov after Shabbos. We make Gezerah, if we let you use and move it on Yom Tov, you might come to move it on Shabbos. So therefore on Yom Tov too we say that it's forbidden to be moved. And says the Gemara, and Bechitim, if you're going to say, wait a second, Gezerah Yom Tov after Shabbos? Shabbos gufei tishrei, Shabbos itself you should be able to move the log. Even though it's something that generally has a prohibited malacha function to it, but you, Rabbi, just said that you're allowed to move it even for its place, and for sure for using it for permitted function. So why would that be us on Shabbos that you tell me Yom Tov you can't move it because of Shabbos? Says the Gemara, no, and this is a very important halacha muktzah. When did we say that you could take a klisha malachta le'issa and move it l'tzarech gufay mekayma? That's heichadik a Torah's clear love. There's a lot of discussion here in the Paiskim regarding how to qualify this line we're about to say. That's when it has the status of a vessel on it. It's a vessel. It's a function of a kli. It's just generally functions for a prohibited function. That's where you can move l'tzarech gufay mekayma. But heichad the leker Torah's clear love, if it doesn't have the status of a vessel at all, meaning to say it's what's called muktzah machmas gufay, it has intrinsic muktzah status, then you cannot move it even l'tzarech gufay l'tzarech mekayma. So this actually is the classic case of a piece of wood, a rock, a piece of wood. They do not even consider a kli. Those things actually halacha l'maisa. We say you can't move it l'tzarech gufay mekayma. You can't move it at all because it's not a kli. If it's a kli, it just has a prohibited function. Then you can move l'tzarech gufay mekayma like a hammer. But if it's a rock you can't move, even if you want to use it to go ahead and steady a pot, or you want to steady your sefer, or you want to go ahead, you move its place because you want to use the spot, you can't move it, it's considered muktzah machmas gufa, and therefore it's not difficult on Rava. That's why everyone would agree to that Mishnah Masechtas Beya that you can't move the piece of wood on Shabbos on Yom Tov because of Shabbos, and Shabbos you can't move because of muktzah machmas gufa. So for now, the Gemara goes back, however, to the concept and says, "Oh, you make a gzera of Yom Tov at the Shabbos." Says Gemara, "Migas Rin, do we really make a gzera? Do we equate the halachas of Yom Tov to Shabbos because we're concerned that you might come do it on Shabbos?" But what's not? We learn the Mishnah Masechtas Beya that says, "Mashilin peiros." You could lower down the produce which was spread out on the roof to dry. In Talmudic times, that was classic. They would take the fruits and they would dry it on the roofs. Now the problem is the guy sees that the rain is starting to come. So he could go ahead and lower down the produce, derech aruba, through the skylight of the roof, where it's not such a tircha because you push it down, it falls down into the house. You could do that b'yom tov on Yom Tov. Avoloi b'Shabbos, but not on Shabbos. So obviously we don't make a gzera of Yom Tov after Shabbos, although Shabbos is forbidden, on Yom Tov we permitted. To which Gemara responds back and says, wait. Me like Gazrin, do we not make a gzera of Yom Tov after Shabbos? But what's not? That same Masechta over there in Beya says that Ein Ben Yom Tov l'Shabbos, there's no difference between the laws of Yom Tov to Shabbos. The only difference is regarding cooking on Shabbos, preparing of food. You see everything else, it is the same. We do make Yom Tov after Shabbos. So how do we understand the contradiction to resolve the question? So Rabbi says, like Kash, it's not difficult. He says, this that the Mishnah says, Ein Bain, that there's no difference, Yom Tov is going to be the same as Shabbos, that we're going to make a gzera of Yom Tov after Shabbos, that's going like Rabbi Eliezer. That we said that in the Mishnah, that you could lower down the produce on Yom Tov, in contrast to Shabbos, meaning that we allow this tircha on Yom Tov because of the loss of money, that's going like Rabbi Shua, who he permits, as we're going to quote right now, to take up an animal from a pit on Yom Tov in a harama way, like a tricky way, and therefore he allows a dispensation on Yom Tov because of a loss of money. He does not make the gzera of Yom Tov after Shabbos. The time like Linda Bryce. The halacha is Oisei bez benoi, regarding a mother and its baby. You're not allowed to shech both. You're not allowed to slaughter them both on the same day. Now let's say shenaf lebar. Let's say they both fell into a pit on Yom Tov. You're afraid that they might get hurt or get malnourished or get injured. So Rabbi Eliezer says malas arish manas l'shach. What you could do is you could take out one of them, what we call the first, take it out with the intention to slaughter it, and slaughter that, so you'll have meat on Yom Tov. But the second one you have to support and sustain it in the pit, that it doesn't die, but you cannot take it out because you have no Yom Tov need. What are you going to take it out? To shecht it? You can't shecht it. You can't do both on the same day. Rabbi Shloime, he says, so you see that he holds that you cannot take it out on Yom Tov. Shloime, he says, malas arish manas l'shach. No, what you can do is like this, the following trick. Take out the first one with intention to slaughter it. But ve'inashach, then you look at it, you say, that doesn't look like a great animal, then don't slaughter it. Umar mamalas hasheni, and then go ahead and do the trick and take out the second one. Because, that one I want to slaughter. Now, when both of them are out, rotzah zeh you have a choice which one you want to slaughter it. Now we resolve the contradiction. Rabbi Yeshua, who allows a dispensation on Yom Tov because of loss of money, he's the one that says that there is going to be a discrepancy between Yom Tov and Shabbos. He's not goyzer Yom Tov after Shabbos. The halacha that says there's no difference between Yom Tov and Shabbos, that's going like Rabbi Eliezer. He says, no, you can't do this trick. Yom Tov is the same as Shabbos, and just like Shabbos, you wouldn't be able to. Yom Tov, once you already used up your heter of Eichel Nefesh, because you're slaughtering the first one, you cannot take out the second one. To which the Gemara says, Mimai. From where do you get this, that this is the same opinions? I could tell you that each one wouldn't necessarily hold regarding the same thing of our machlekes over here, regarding this of lowering the produce down from the skylight. Because Dilma Ad Kan Lekam Rebbe Lezer Hasan, where do we find Rebbe Lezer over there that says that Yom Tov has the same stringency as Shabbos? That let's say you can't take out the second animal. That's because El De'efshel Parnasa, because you could provide for it in the pit. So what would be the reason that we would let you to be lenient? But when you cannot go ahead and do any provisions, so then actually he wouldn't say that Yom Tov would be the same as Shabbos. If it's going to be a definite loss, he would agree that you could be lenient on Yom Tov and he would not be geyser Yom Tov after Shabbos. And Inam, we could say the other way. Ad kan lekam Rabbi Shua Hasan. Where do we find Rabbi Shua over there that he's lenient regarding the tircha of Yom Tov? It's because the Efsha B'harama. Because ultimately, you could do a trick. In other words, it looks like you are doing it for tzarech Yom Tov because you took out the first one and quote unquote you didn't like the way it looked, and then you're taking out the second one. But regarding lowering the produce from the roof, through the skylight, heichadol Efsha B'harama, where you cannot do a trick to make it look like as if it's permitted, because there's no trick, you're pushing them all down through the roof. You see you're doing a tircha, then maybe actually it would not permit it. So it's not necessarily going to be the same machlekes. So how do we resolve this contradiction if we're geyser Yom Tov after Shabbos or not? So Elam Papi says, Lakash is not difficulty. Habe Shamai. This that we said that in bin Yom Tov the Shabbos, that there's no difference that everything's going to be forbidden on Yom Tov as it is on Shabbos. That's going like Beis Shammai. Beis Hill, this that we said that we're going to provide certain leniencies that you can lower the produce through the skylight on Yom Tov, and even though you cannot do it on Shabbos, that's going like Beis Hill. It's not like within the Mishnah Masechtas Beis. Beis Shammai, they says if you tint them a days, Eimetzin es hakat. You cannot take out a minor, a little child, Vesalulav or the lulav, Sevater, L'shus harabim, to Rishus harabim, which on Yom Tov, because this is what's called hitzah shaloi l'tzarech. It's not a necessity for a eichel nefesh purpose, because Beis Shammai holds that we didn't initially permit on Yom Tov anything more than Shabbos, only eichel nefesh. So taking out a child in a stroller on Yom Tov is not an eichel nefesh purpose. According to Beis Shammai, you're not allowed to carry out their things on Yom Tov. But Beis Hill Matir, Beis Hill says no, it's permitted, because Beis Hill allow more leniencies on Yom Tov than on Shabbos, and therefore you're allowed to lower the produce from the skylight into the house. That is permitted on Yom Tov, and we're not Geizer Atu Shabbos, and therefore that's the halacha that says you're allowed to lower it through the skylight. And therefore that resolves the contradiction regarding are we Geizer Yom Tov Atu Shabbos? Are we going to make it the same just like Beis Shammai, or do we say that no, we have certain leniencies on Yom Tov that's going like Beis Hill? But the Gemara says the question regarding to the comparison. Aimer, when do we say the Shamalul Beis Shammai that we hear from Beis Shammai that he's stringent that Yom Tov is going to be like Shabbos? That's Haitzah. All we found that's regarding carrying. We said you're not allowed to carry in Yom Tov any more than Shabbos. It's only for Eichel Nefesh purposes. But regarding tilt, regarding moving something, like let's say the produce on the roof, Mi Shamalahu, did we hear that he's going to compare Yom Tov to Shabbos? How are you comparing the two contents? On that says the Gemara, yes. Because the tilt gufe regarding moving something itself, like muktzah, like produce on the roof, la mishum haitzahi, isn't it because of carrying, which the Ravid brings proof to his interpretation from here, which there are many different interpretations. Why did Rabbanan make muktzah aser? He says, you see from here that why did they make muktzahs because of carrying? Because if you're allowed to move everything around, you might come to just carry it in the street. But since you have limitations regarding what you could move and what you cannot, you're not going to carry things into the street. And therefore, yes, says the Gemara, if you would be disgraceful regarding tiltal, of what we call muktzah, let's say the payers on the roof, you might come to be disgraceful regarding haitzah and carry out into the street, which is also forbidden in Yom Tov. And therefore, you cannot be mashilin as a payers derech haruva. That's like Beis Shammai, because the laws of muktzah is the same thing as the laws of haitzah. And therefore, again, there's no difficulty on Rava. From all the different questions, we resolved Rava, and we said that yes, could be a klisha malachta le'isser, could be moved l'tzarech gufay and l'tzarech me kaimai. And we said that this halacha of, let's say, on Yom Tov, which according to everyone you should be able to move, we said no, that's Atu Shabbos. With Shabbos, we said that's actually muktzah machmas gufay. We said that we would make a gzera of Yom Tov Atu Shabbos. And we just had that Mishnah Masechtas Beis that we had to resolve regarding the contradiction, regarding do we compare Yom Tov to Shabbos or not. That was the machlekes Beis Shammai itself. Now the Gemara continues regarding these two different opinions. We had Rabba and Rava regarding the explanation of the halacha of the Mishnah. It says the Gemara, Av Rav Saval Lahad Rava. Rava also holds like Rava, that he says you can move a klisha malachta l'isser, even not only tzarech gufay, but even l'tzarech mekaymi, even for its place. So let's say a hammer on Shabbos, you're allowed to move if it's taking up the spot on the Shabbos table. Where do we find Rav says like Rava? Because the Amar Rav said Amar, a hoe, which is some type of a planting instrument, Shalo Yiganev, if you don't want it to get stolen, which that's the case of Chamal itself, you just want to protect it from the sun to the shade, or that it shouldn't get stolen. So that we said, that even Rava holds it's forbidden because it's a Kli Shemalach L'Isser. Says Rav, Zeu Tiltul Shalol Tzarech. That's moving it for not a Shabbos purpose, which we said that's how Rava himself explains, that's what it means, Shalol Tzarech. And if also they're not allowed to move it. Says the Gemara, Time Shalay Yigana. The reason why you're not allowed to move the hoe, the hammer, whatever it is, so it shouldn't get stolen. But let's say you're moving it either for itself to crack open them or not, or because you want its place, then what is going to be permitted. So you see that Rav holds like Rava. That says the Gemara, is that really so? But for Rav Kahana, Rav Kahana went to the house of Rav. Aman Rav said, Aitali Shusa, bring him a trap, lekahana to kahana, leisib to sit on it. So as the Gemara explains, why did he have to say that bring the trap that he could sit on it? Lav remember, isn't it to say because the davish malachta leisser, something that general function is for prohibited function, where why are you allowed to move this trap? It's a klish malachta leisser, is only l'tzarech gufay in, only if you want to use it for it itself, but to sit on it. It sounds like l'tzarech mekayim eloi, but if you just wanted the place that you wouldn't be able to move it, that contradicts what we just said is Rav's opinion like Rava. Says the Gemara, no, hachi amalu. This is what he said to them. Shekulu shusu mikmei kahana. Move the trap away from kahana. Meaning because he wanted to sit in that spot. And he was actually moving it away, l'tzarech mekayim, because he wanted the place. And it's exactly like his opinion that you're allowed to move a klishal machlis, like this trap, which he wanted to catch all the mice, move it away, which even though it's a klishal machlis, you're allowed to move it l'tzarech mekayim, which was Rav Kahana to sit in that spot. Or maybe some another interpretation you could say. No, hasam mechama l'tzel hava. Actually, there, the trap was in a bad place. It was in the sun. It was going to get ruined. Now, if he wouldn't explicitly say that move the trap so that Kahana could sit on it, so whoever would see him moving it would think that he's moving it because he doesn't want it to get ruined from the sun. So they didn't need the place to say that, oh, okay, they wanted the place to sit in it because no one needed the place. He had to say move it so Kahana could sit on it, even though you could move it for its place. But since it was in the sun, people would think that he was moving it to protect it from the elements. They say, I see you could take that segue, you can move it, even though it's a klishal machla iser, if you want it mechamla, so you don't want to get ruined from the rain. So he says, no, honey, take the segue so that someone could sit on it. That's why he had to say that, so people knew it's not mechamla itself. But really, it would be permitted even l'tzayirach mekayme. But in that situation, no one was going to sit over there. It was obvious it wasn't l'tzayirach mekayme. Now the Gemara brings a story that Rav Mori Bar Rachel, Havaleahi Beisad Yusuf, he had a certain pillow of felt that was b'shimsh, it was in the sun. It was getting ruined, sitting there in the sun. So also coming to Rabbi came in front of Rava. Amalei said to Malu Talfinu, could I move this pillow that I have here in the sun? So Amalei Shari says, Yolano, this is Rava according to his interpretation, that he says a davish malach leheter, something that has a permitted function like a pillow, you could even move it from the sun to the shade, so that it doesn't get ruined. So but then he says, but Islachrin, he says, I have another pillow. I don't need it, what's called the tzarech guf, I don't need it to use the pillow. So he said, okay, it's okay, chazil archin, you could use it for the guest. So he says, Islinam archin, I have more pillows even for the guest. So Amalei, so Rabbi said to him, look, Galisa daitach, you're obviously revealing your intention, the karabas rilach, that you hold like Rabbi, because you keep on saying that, oh, but I don't need it for its, I don't need it, let's say, which Rabbi holds that even a permitted thing like a pillow is forbidden to be moved mecham letzal. Now, as Rashi points out, the halacha is like Rava that he says, a klishah malach leheter is totally permitted. You let him move it no matter what the reason is, even to protect it from the rain. And a klishah malach iser is permitted l'tzarech gufa and l'tzarech mekayma. It's only from the sun to the shade or not to get thrown that's going to be forbidden. But here it's a pillow, you're allowed to move it. Why do you keep on telling me, I don't need it, I have for my guests? Obviously, you hold like Rava that holds that if you only l'tzarech gufa and mekayma, it's going to be awesome. So it says, L'kuli amashari, for everyone it's permitted to move it, l'deidach aser, for you it's forbidden because you obviously hold like that, and therefore you can't not move the pillow because you don't need it for yourself and you don't need it for your guests. Now, related back to this teaching, the Gemara brings the following teaching, Amar Rababa, Amar Rav Chia bar Ashi. Amar Rav, the Rav said the following teaching, Machbadais are brooms that you sweep the table with, Shel milsa that are made out of cloth. These are certain garments like a shmata that they use to clean the table, which are klishah malach leheter. It's not a permitted thing to shmata. It has a permitted function. Mutal talkum b'Shabbos. You let them move it on Shabbos. Avashal tomorrow, but the brooms that are made out of the palm leaves, like our brooms, which are used to sweep the house, that in Talmudic times was forbidden to be used because their floors were made out of dirt, and you can't use the broom because you might come to smooth out the ground. Which Reb Shimon agrees that since that's inevitable that you're going to come to smooth out the ground, so that's going to be a problem about baina. So therefore the broom is a klishah malach le'isr. It's a vessel that has a prohibited function, which you cannot sweep with it anyway. So that like that you're not allowed to move, that's going to be considered muktzah. Rabbi Lazar, he says, no, afshal tamar, it says even the brooms that are made out of the palm fronds, which are like these lulav branches, so to speak, like that, like a broom, that you're allowed to move on Shabbos. So the Gemara says, wait a second, what's the case of this broom that we have this machlekes? If the discussion is regarding that you want to move it for, let's say, to use it itself for permitted malacha, or it's for the place itself, so here Rav is going to say shal tomorrow live that if it's made out of palm fronds, which is like a prohibited, what's it called, klishah malach le'isr, that you're not allowed to move it on Shabbos. But for Rav Karavas, really, we just said before that Rav holds like Rava that even klishah malach le'isr, even though it's for a prohibited function, you're allowed to move it on Shabbos. Why would he say it's aser? And the Rabbi says the Gemara, mechamal etzal, must be that you want to move the broom, that it just doesn't get ruined. The kids are playing there, whatever it is going to get ruined, you want to move it. It's a klishah malach le'isr, that you cannot move just to protect it. But says the Gemara, wait, so how you can tell me that the Rabbi Lazar is going to hold that you're allowed to move it even afshal tomorrow, even the muktzah broom? which is a kli shalach le'isser. No one says a kli shalach le'isser you're allowed to move from the sun to the shade. How would he say that it's permitted? Says the Gemara, the truth is, like we said, it's talking about where you want to use it to protect it. That's where Rav said it's forbidden. And Amos say, so too Rabbi Elazar says that if the broom is made out of the cloth one, that's like the shmata, that's a kli shalach le'heta, that you're allowed to move. The kli shal tamara, the broom that's made out of the palm fronds, which is forbidden to be used on Shabbos, that is forbidden, he agrees, it's forbidden to be moved from chal latzel, from the sun to the shade. We continue with the next Mishnah, continue on these halachas of muktzah. Says the Mishnah, kol ha-kelim hanitalim b'Shabbos. All vessels which could be moved on Shabbos. So let's say you have a regular earthenware bowl that you use for your soup on Shabbos. So shivreya nital niman. So when, let's say the bowl breaks, you could move the broken pieces with it. As long as it still has some function that it could be used, even if it cannot be used in its original function, but you could use it for some malacha, so it's still considered as a kli on some level, and it's not going to be muktzah, so you can move it. For example, the Mishnah gives examples. Shibri areva, let's say you had a mixer that broke. So you have the broken pieces of the mixer. You could use it lachas ben espeyachavis, you could still use it to cover the top of the barrel, so it still has a function. So although it doesn't have the original function, it's still not going to be muktzah. Shibri schuchas, let's have a broken piece of a glass, so you could use a lachas ben espeyapach to cover the opening of the flask. So again, it's still considered that it has a me'ein malacha, it's still going to be used for some task, it's still going to be considered prepared. Rabbi Yehuda, he says no. He has more of a limitation. He says, it has to still be able to use in some function of its original function. For example, he explains, Shibra Reba, the broken piece of the mixer, it has to be lotzuk l'toichan mikvah, that you could pour inside of it porridge, which is thick, which is similar to dough, which is what a mixer is for, that you mix with water. It has to be able to have its original function, that you could also pour something thick inside. V'shal zechuches, that of glass, is lotzuk l'toichan shemen. The glass, generally, you hold inside of it some type of a liquid. You have to be able to pour inside of it some oil. If something could be poured inside of it, then it's going to have its original function. That's where it's going to still be permitted. It's still going to be considered muchan, and it's going to be permitted to be moved. Now, regarding this machlekes, the Gemara brings Amar Behuda Mishmol. He says the machlekes in our Mishnah is only shenishbru me'erev Shabbos. This glass, this earthenware vessel, it broke from before Shabbos. And that's where we have the machlekes. Does it have to have me'ein malacha or me'ein malachtan? What's the machlekes? The Marsa Rabbi Yehuda held me'ein malachtan in. It's only if it has its original function. Then it's still considered prepared. Me'ein malacha cheres light. But if it could be used in some other form, then it's not going to be permitted to be moved. It lost its status as a kli. Whereas a Marsa, but the Tanakh held, no, afil me'ein malacha cheres. Even if it has some other malacha format that it could be used in, it's still going to be considered prepared. Now, that's what he's saying. That's only from before Shabbos. Of the nishbur b'Shabbos, but it broke on Shabbos. Everyone would agree it's still permitted to be moved. Why? Since when Shabbos started, it was considered permitted to be moved. So it's going to be permitted to be moved now, even after it breaks. The whole machlekes was regarding if it broke on Erev Shabbos. Which Meister Rebbe Troy, he asked from the following brisa. The brisa says, "Masikin bekelim." On Yom Tov, you're allowed to go ahead and throw into the fire. You're allowed to heat up a fire with a vessel, because a vessel is permitted to be moved, and you can move it and you can throw it into the fire. But but you cannot heat up the fire with broken vessels, which are muktzah, and it's not fit to be moved. Says Reb Zetroy, explaining this brisa to ask the question, when did these vessels break? If they broke on Erev Yom Tov, so what's the problem? It's like a piece of firewood, because yesterday it was already ready for fuel, so why can't you use it as a fire? Rather it broke on Yom Tov. And still, look, we're learning in the Brisa, Masikin Bekelim, you could heat up the fire with a vessel. Masikin Beshibikim, you cannot heat up with broken pieces on the vessel. And that was, we don't say that it was prepared because it was part of the vessel when Yom Tov started. Rather, we say what's called nailid. It's considered like a new entity, and if it's forbidden to be used. So you see that even on Yom Tov, it's not true, not that everyone holds muchan. You see that there is an opinion that's going to say that it's going to be nailid. So rather, says the Gemara, you're right. If we're going to learn this qualification of Yehuda Mishmul, which is as we have it over here on the slide, is hachit. This is as was said. Amar Yehuda Mishmul. It says machlekes. The disagreement on Mishnah was shenishbru b'Shabbos. If it broke on Shabbos, the Marsa of the Talmud Kama held muchanu. It's considered prepared because it still has some function of a malacha, of some type of activity it could be used for. It could cover a flask, so therefore it's still considered prepared. Well, Marsa but Yehuda held that no, it's considered like a new entity. Because yesterday it was not designated, it was not usable for this malacha, for this utility. So therefore, you need to have me'ein malachtai, has to be able to have its original function, but it doesn't. It's considered nail, it's considered muktzah. of Me'er Shabbos, but let's say it broke from before Shabbos. Oh, Divar Kol Mutar. Everyone would agree it's permitted to be moved. Since before Shabbos already broke, so whatever malach it's still fit for, that's what you're going to use it for from now on. So it's already was muchan for that from before Shabbos, so therefore it's going to be considered as permitted according to everyone. Now, regarding this case of the that we just discussed, regarding when we asked it from a question with Masikin Bekalim and not Bashir Bekalim, so the Gemara actually brings that halacha that we asked from actually has three different brises in its halacha. Tanachad, within one brisa, Masikim Bekalim, we could heat up a fire with vessels on Yom Tov, Ve'emasikim Bashir Bekalim, but you cannot heat up with broken vessels. That's one brisa. Another brisa that says Kashem Masikim Bekalim, so too, like you could heat up with vessels, Kach Masikim Bashir Bekalim, so you could heat up with broken vessels. And a third brisa that says no, you cannot heat up a fire loy bekalim, not with vessels, loy b'shir bekalim, not with broken vessels. How do we understand that? Three different contradictory brises. Says the Gemara, it's not difficult. There's three different Tanoic opinions. The first brisa that says that you could heat up with vessels, but you cannot heat up with broken vessels, is Rabbi Yehuda, who we always say throughout this Masechta that he holds a muktzah and noilan. So vessels are not muktzah because you can move around a bowl or a plate, and therefore you can heat up the fire with it. But broken pieces, as we said before, he considered it as noilid. So therefore it's a new thing. And as we were mentioning his opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, he was the opinion of the Mishnah, who we just asked from, and therefore we amended the qualification of Rabbi Shmuel. Yeah, you cannot heat up with shibri kelim because it's considered noilid. The second brace that says you could heat up the fire with both kelim and shibri kelim is Reb Shimon, who he holds generally doesn't hold up the concept of muktzah and noilid. So even if it breaks, it's still going to be permitted. The brace that says that even with vessels you can heat up the fire is Reb Nechemia, who we mentioned many times. He mentioned Ahmed Alf also that he says a vessel cannot be moved unless it's for its designated purpose. Here it's not its designated purpose. Generally, you don't use a bowl for the fire; you use it for drinking or eating. So therefore, you cannot use kalim or shivrei kalim. Now, related to these teachings of Muktzah, Amar of Nachman, he says, "Hani livni d'ishtarim b'binyana." Regarding these bricks that were left over from construction, from building, so you have some leftover bricks. Now you're not going to use it for building anymore. Now you're just going to use it for sitting on it. So it has the status of a vessel. It's not like Muktzah matmas kufay. So Charlotte Taltin, you could go ahead and move it because the Chazal the Mizgala, you could use it to recline on it. So therefore, it's not Muktzah. But let's say Shargino, let's say they had piled up the bricks one on top of the other. Says the Gemara, then no, Vade Ksinu, then for sure you set it aside for some other building project that you're going to have, and therefore it's going to be Muktzah. Another teaching from Amram Nachman Shmuel, he says, Cheres Ketana, a small piece of earthenware that broke off from a vessel, so it's like a small piece of pottery. So we have a three-way machlokes regarding what you're allowed to do with this. So Rav Nachman, in the name of Shmuel, he says, Mutal Talta B'chatzir. You're allowed to move it in a courtyard because in the courtyard you have vessels generally, and this piece of earthenware shard you could use to cover the vessel, so it still has a status of a kli because it still has a function of utility. But in the Carmelis, which is, even though you could carry, let's say, within Dalet Ames, but since in the Carmelis, which is an open field, let's say, which you don't usually have any vessels, it's not a courtyard, so therefore it's not going to be function to cover any vessel, so therefore it's going to be considered as muktzah. But a second interpretation of Nachman di Deyama, first he said Rav Nachman was saying in the name of Shmuel, Rav Nachman himself holds actually, no, I feel a bit Carmelis. Even in the Carmelis, since it's not a Rishus Rabbim, so it does happen that people go and they sit over there, and they spit over there, and you could cover the spit, so therefore the shard has utility. But in the public domain, then not, because there people don't just sit there and hang out and have spit, therefore it has no function. Rambam, he says a third interpretation is even the public domain, and he says, as the Gemara is going to explain, since in the courtyard it is considered kli, so it doesn't lose its status of a kli, even if it's in a place that it doesn't have a function. As the Gemara says, if Azar Rabba L'tamei, Rabba goes according to his reasoning. As the Gemara brings a story, the Rabba Avaka Azal Beriska de Mechuzah. Rabba was walking in a certain street in Mechuzah called Risko, as Fasoy Masone Tina, and his shoes got dirty with mud. So Asashame, the Heisbucha, his attendant came, Shakal Chaspa, took a earthenware shard, and he was going ahead and wiping off the mud from the Rebbe's shoes. So Ramabei Rabban Nikola, so the rabbi started screaming at him and saying, wait, what are you doing moving this earthenware shard? So Rava said, not only don't these rabbis know how to learn what's permitted, what's forbidden, but migmiri. But they're also going and now teaching others the mistake they have in their hands. You love those people. They don't even know what to talk about. They're darshaning to others what the halacha is. He says, no, if the shard would be in the courtyard, wouldn't it be useful to cover a vessel? So it has the status of a kli. So Achanami here also, it doesn't lose the status of a kli. Chazi l'didi. For me, it also has function to go ahead and wipe off the mud. Now, although it's not common, but since it has the status of a kli in the chutzner, it doesn't lose the status of a kli even in Rosh Hashanah. Now, related to Amar Behuda Mishmul, to the loyal muktzeh, says Magufas chavis, into a broken piece of earthenware, says the lid of a barrel, shenichsasa, which the barrel itself was grinded down, which broke, it shattered. Mutzal Tatar Shabbos, you're allowed to go ahead and move the lid on Shabbos. And Tanya Malka, similar in the Brisa, Magufa, the lid of a barrel, Shenichsasa, which the barrel broke, so the lid, Bishavrel, and the broken pieces of the barrel, Mutzal Tatar Shabbos, you're allowed to move it on Shabbos, like we said just before, because you could use it to cover some type of a vessel, the broken shards still have utility. But, V'lo Yisves, you shouldn't fix Mimena from it, Shaver, any of the broken pieces, let's say to smooth out the broken shards on Shabbos, L'chasas Ba'asakli, to cover a vessel, but listen about Bakaramitor to support the legs of the bed, because if you're going to shape it, you're going to fix the shard, you're going to make it into a vessel, that's going to be Makab Patesh, you're going to be finishing a vessel, that's forbidden to be done on Shabbos. Now, but, although we said you can move the broken shards, but says the halacha, Vim Zarka, but let's say you throw this lid, the ashman, the garbage, then it's also then it's forbidden to be moved, because you already nullified it from the status of a vessel, because you threw it in the garbage. That masculine puppy says, wait a second, because you threw it in the garbage, if that's the case, let's say someone takes his jacket, and he throws it into the garbage on Shabbos. You think it's going to be forbidden to move it? What do you mean? Why does throwing it into the garbage make a muktzah? Ella, rather, Amar Papa, he holds, as you continue to of Kof Chofayim and Aleph, if you took the shard and you threw it from before Shabbos into the garbage dump, then yesterday already revealed your intention that you're not considering as a man anymore, as a vessel, because you threw in the garbage, then that's going to be forbidden, as Teisa explains. Here the Gemara doesn't ask, wait a second, I throw my jacket into the garbage on Friday, you think I can't move it? No, because a shard is only because it could have a function. But since it's not prepared from before Shabbos, you can't compare it to a jacket. A jacket, it has intrinsic functionality, and therefore it's permitted to be moved. But this broken shard, okay, you could say it has the status of a vessel on Shabbos, and Shabbos is not going to change because it was permitted already on Shabbos. But if you threw in the garbage from Friday, you already revealed before Shabbos that you're makatz midaita, you're not considered as a vessel. Therefore, that's when we're saying it can be forbidden to be moved on Shabbos. Some of this we spoke about in today's Daf, in Shabbos Daf Kuf Chav Daled, was we said that those four Mishnayos that we thought we had to say that they were taught before the heter of Kalim, and that's why they're forbidden. We said, what do you mean? Many of them were klishulach heter, and we said you can't move them. Why? We said that it was obviously taught before the heter of the Kalim. The Gemara says no. We could say that the first two, you don't need to move them. If you don't need to move them, then you can't move them, even though the klishulach heter. So too, and actually even in Halach al-Maisa, we have some places that talk about those things. Really, something that has a permitted function, you're not allowed to just move it for no reason. Even Klish Malach, we say you're allowed to move Mechabel itself, but no reason, possibly even the Klish Malach Lahet, you're not allowed to move. So that's was those first two cases. So too, the third case of the gluster of the knob, the reason why you're not allowed to move it is not because of muktzah, it's because Teicha Pesach is kilifnim, and therefore it's a problem about actually taking from a bias to a chatzah, which is a different problem about haitzah. And the fourth case of meducha of the mortar, that's because it's going like Rabbi Nechemia, who he altered, you can't move anything unless it's for its primary function, and the meducha without any garlic cannot be moved, so it could even be la'achar hetekayim shenina. Then we went to the next mission that said all vessels could be moved. We had a machlekes, as the Gemara explains, kol hakelim meant a klisha malachtar laheter, can be moved. The Tanakama says litzarich and shaloi litzarich. Rabbi Nechemia says no, can only move litzarich. Now what does litzarich v'shaloi litzarich mean? So we had a machlekes Rabbah and Rabbah. Rabbah said litzarich meant a klisha malachtar laheter litzarich kufay. Shaloi litzarich meant was you can move it even litzarich mekaymai. According to Nechemia, no, shaloi for litzarich mekaymai would be forbidden. It would be considered as muktzah, and actually we have to explain according to that interpretation how you're allowed to move the plates after the meal must be like a grav shalrei, because since it's a kli shalach leheter, even that he holds litzarich mekaymai not allowed to move. Still, that you're allowed to go ahead and move it because grav shalrei. Now, but a kli shalach le'isser, that litzarich mekaymai, according to Rabbah's interpretation, according even to Tanakama, you're not allowed to move a litzarich mekaymai. That was Rabbah. Rabbah said no, more lenient, as actually the halacha finds Rabbah. Litzarich means litzarich guvay and mekaymai, and shaloi litzarich is to move it from the sun to the shade, which according to Nechemia, that's going to be muktzah. Meaning we hold the kli shalach leheter, let's say a tablecloth, you are allowed to move that it shouldn't get ruined. But Nechemia holds no, that's forbidden. And a kli shalach le'isser, that as we rule, you're not allowed to move just to protect it. And then the Gemara explains that, so why you're not allowed to move the mortar without any garlic, or why you're not allowed to move the pestle, is because talking about mechamal itself. which yes, if it's the Kli Shamach Isser, that's where it's going to be forbidden to be moved. Then we said that we have a halacha that says you're not allowed to move a log on Yom Tov. Why? A log on Yom Tov is Kli Shamach Heter. Why can't you move it? So he says because Gzeir Yom Tov Otter Shabbos. What does that mean? Gzeir Yom Tov Otter Shabbos. Why can't you move it on Shabbos? Because it's not even the Kli Shamach Isser. It's not a Kli. It's rather Muktzah Machmas Gufay. On Shabbos you can't move a log or a rock at all. So you make Gzeir Yom Tov Otter Shabbos. But then the Gemara says, wait a second. You tell me Yom Tov is the same as Shabbos, but we find that we do differentiate that Yom Tov is different than Shabbos, which we lower down the peiros. Said the Gemara, that goes like Rabbi Yeshua, who he says it's permitted. You're allowed to do a tirch on Yom Tov just like by the firstborn animal that fell into the pit because of loss of money. Whereas the Bryce that says that Ein Bain Yom Tov l'Shabbos, that's going like Rabbi Eliezer. Or you could say that, no, Rabbi Eliezer, you can't compare it necessarily, says the Gemara. Rabbi Eliezer maybe would only say it's Asr over there by Bachar because you could support it. Or maybe Yeshua actually only permits it only over there because you could do Harama. So maybe that wouldn't be a good resolution. So the Gemara says, no, you're right. This we say Yom Tov is like Shabbos is going like Beishamah. This is not like Shabbos going like Beisil, just like we find by the laws of Eitzah on Yom Tov, which that's the reason for the Isra of Tiltal of Muktzah. The ideology of it is from Haitzah. So just like we find Beishamah holds Yom Tov is like Shabbos, he's the one that's going to hold Ein Mein Yom Tov the Shabbos, and Beisil holds it's not like Shabbos, and therefore they're going to be the ones that hold that you could lower down the peiros from the skyline on Shabbos. Then we went to the next mission that says all kalim that can be moved on Shabbos, even the broken pieces can be taken too. So we said it's a machlekes is that specifically if it could do some type of a malacha, or it has to be ma'im malachta and it has to be able to do original from its original malacha. The Havamina of the Gemara was that the machlekes if it broke on Erev Shabbos, but if it broke on Shabbos, according to everyone, it's considered already prepared from Bein Hashmashas because it was part of the vessel. And the Gemara concludes no. Machlekes is if it broke on Shabbos. That's when it's a machlekes if it's considered muchan, or Rabbi Yehuda still holds as he holds that it's nailed, as we actually brought that brisa, which that leads into the three different brises that we brought, that he considers nailed as the shiur kalim. But from Erev Shabbos, everyone agrees that it's going to be considered as muchan because it's already from before Shabbos broken, you know what it's being used for, and that's its malacha, so it's considered prepared, it's not a nailed, it's not a new entity on Shabbos. Now we said that actually the brisa we had brought was one of three brises. One brisa, which was this one of Rabbi Yehuda, said you could heat up a fire on Shabbos with kalim, but not with shiur kalim. That's like Rabbi Yehuda, who he holds that keli is not, it's considered muchan, but the shiur kalim is considered as nailed, that's forbidden. The brisa says you could heat up with vessels and even with broken vessels, like Rabbi Shimon, who he doesn't hold of the halacha of nailed and muktzah. And the third brisa says you cannot heat up, not with kalim and not with shiur kalim. It's like in Nehemiah says you can only use it for its designated function. We spoke about bricks that are left over from the building. You're allowed to move it because people use it to recline on. But if you pile them up, obviously you're putting it away for your next building project if it's going to be muktzah. But then we had a three machlekes regarding a small earthenware shard. What could you do with it? Either you could carry it in the chutzner, because there you could use it to cover some type of a bottle, but a carmel is not. Or even the carmel is because people spit over there and it's useful for that. Or even shusharam, like Rabbi said, because since it's considered as a mana, you could use it, let's say, to get rid of the mud that's on the shoe in Rosh Hashanah. Then we spoke about the lid of a barrel and its broken piece. You're allowed to move it, but if you throw it into the garbage, and forbidden. And some say no, it's only if you threw it into the garbage from before Shabbos, then it's going to be awesome. But if you threw it on Shabbos, it already has considered muchan. It's not going to become muktzah by just throwing it into the garbage. Thank you to any time for hosting us.
Good.